we start it? These are somewhat adjustable.
This is your podcast.
Okay.
However you want to do it.
Should we?
I could never do that with a straight face.
Should we introduce ourselves?
I guess we could.
Okay. We're sisters. And we're gonna start a podcast.
Because we have nothing better to do.
Mm-hmm. Oh, when we titled this episode, I had an idea for it. It was Another CoG7 in the Wheel.
That's better than growing up weird, I guess.
I guess so. Well, we're gonna have
for our non-existent target audience, that is other people in Church of God Seventh Day that would another in the wheel.
And then after I thought of that, I was like, oh, I mean, I bet people in CoG7 have made that joke so many times.
I've never heard it.
How have we not said it before? I'm Alicia, and I work at a tourist trap in Arizona.
And that's not true.
No.
And I'm Lark, and I don't know.
Wow. So the first episode, we thought we might as well do something that does kind of explain our background and introduce us, especially for anybody who bothers to listen who's not from CoG7, which is Church of God Seventh Day, which is the denomination that we grew up in. And there are some very distinct doctrinal differences
that you should be aware of.
So stuff we say later on will make more sense. And I think Lark was going to give us a brief history. I don't understand how you don't have notes.
Well, Lark was going to give a brief history, but Lark pooped out. And she has a very brief history. Because you don't actually have to know very much about Church of God Seventh Day to have what you need to know about it. Mm-hmm. Because most people in Church of God Seventh Day probably don't know too much about Church of God Seventh Day. It's not a cult, despite what some cult ledgers would have you believe. I was reading a bunch of books for this, and one of them was some kind of bibliography, but it had a little blurb about every denomination that it talked about in it. And it had all the stuff about Church of God Seventh Day, about how members have to do this and members have to do that. And I was like, have you met anybody from Church of God Seventh Day? Because you don't tell those people to do anything.
Yeah.
Like, you don't tell. Because, I mean, well,
we all collectively tell each other to do things.
Yeah.
I think more, you can't tell us to stop doing
Yeah, you can't tell us to stop. Nobody makes us
Don't tell us we don't have to do something. We'll have to do it if we want to.
Okay, so the very brief history is that back in the 1840s, near the end of the Second Great Awakening, there was a guy named William Miller, and he became convinced, reading the Bible and being overly modernistic about it, that Jesus was going to come back sometime in 1843, and I forget which month. But so he started to get people following him, and there was this huge, publishing thing. They published a lot of stuff to get people on board with this. And then, big surprise, the date came. Jesus didn't come back. So he was like, oh no, I just got the dates wrong. And then Jesus also didn't come back a few months later when he said he was going to. And this was called, the first one was called The Great Disappointment, and then there was the Second Great Disappointment a few months later because one wasn't enough. And then the movement splintered, and about 150 years happened, and there's lots of movements of where it was centered, and a lot of trading, and a lot of schisms. We're really good at schisms. And then you end up with where we are today, which is, I don't even remember how many members. I read it like 3 times in the course of things, and I don't even remember. I want to say 125.
Do you know?
25,000 figured into it somehow, but I don't remember how.
So when people ask me what church I go to, I say Church of God Seventh Day, which is a lot like Seventh-day Adventists, but with some differences that matter to us and probably no one else.
Yeah, they both came from the same movement, the Millerite movement. Yeah. It's a Millerite group is a short way to...
People have never heard of us, but people have usually heard of Seventh-day Adventists, even if they don't even know what the Seventh-day part of it means.
Yeah. Yeah, the germ came... this particular group started its little incorporation, germingness a few years before, mere 5 or 8 years before Ellen G. White, if that gives anybody a better reference.
Are these so these can't possibly have like all come from like one group who never quit going to church on Saturday, though? Somebody at some point must have like rediscovered or decided on Saturday, or is it really like just the tiny little bit that's left from people that never went to Sunday?
Well, I don't think Miller was a Sabbatarian, actually. He was a Baptist. Oh. And
that came in later?
Yeah, it came in later. I don't remember what part. I'm sure I read it, but I don't remember. Because I was wondering that, too. I was like, how do you go from Baptist to...
Ask Grandpa.
Ask Grandpa. Our grandpa grew up Baptist, and then he ended up in this church.
I did have a lot of family jokes on this show. Actually, I was thinking earlier, if I introduce myself, I should end it with, and I'm still struggling to find a way in my life to show off quietly. And this seemed like the best option because that's a family joke.
Yeah, because she said that when she was like 5, and my grandma told her to stop showing off when people were over.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think I was allowed to show off quietly after that.
I don't think anybody told you not to. I don't know if it was probably encouraged.
It probably was encouraged because they thought me saying that was cute. And so then they would tell that story. And then I'd probably start jumping up and down and making faces.
Should I say anything else about the history, or are we good?
Just if you have more to say.
I don't think so.
That's good.
We're the one, if you're looking, because if you search Church of God something, I think there's still like multiple different groups. Mm-hmm. And we're the one that's out of Denver. Mm-hmm. And we're closely allied to the one out of Meridian, Idaho. Mm-hmm. And I think those are mostly the ones that, because there are others. I didn't even know that there are others, but there are others.
That actually are called Church of God Seventh Day?
Or something very similar. Yeah, like the books I read specified that that this was the group with the hyphenated Seventh Day, because apparently that makes a difference.
I wonder if they all call themselves CoG7.
I don't know.
It's a good name.
I hadn't heard it until like 2001.
I think
it's a new thing.
I think when we were making notes for this episode, we were like, well, we'll do a part about the history, and then I think we were going to talk about our experience, and
we should talk about the weird doctrines. Do
you want to do that first?
Yeah, that'll work.
I made a list.
You have notes.
I have notes. Because most of these actually, like the notes I like typed for myself, are actually like the lessons that I'm glad I learned because I have these weird ones. So the first one I wrote down is that the way we were raised, we do not believe that when you die, you go to heaven. And actually, I'm not particularly doctrinally, I'm not super CoG7, really. But this is like one of the few ones where like, yeah, I pretty much think that. I mean, there's like a couple of people in the Bible that it says like, and then they were gathered up to God, and we don't really know what happened. Mm-hmm. And Jesus told like one crazy weird story about Lazarus and the poor man. Rich man?
Yeah, Lazarus and the rich man. Yeah.
Anyways, but
so wait, no, Lazarus and the rich man.
Lazarus was the poor. Are you sure?
Lazarus is the poor man.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know which one he was. Well, it's the anyway.
There was a poor man named Lazarus who laid at the gate of a rich. I'm pretty sure Lazarus was a poor man.
Sores.
Yeah.
I just assumed that the one whose name we knew was the rich one because he's the one that has most of the dialogue about his brothers and wanting to send the. So why doesn't he get a name?
We need to have a Bible that sits right here.
Or at least a Google.
I actually have a Bible over there.
I have a phone with a Bible on it. But anyway, so the way that we were raised, what our church teaches is that when you go to sleep, we might not know exactly what that state is like, but it's pretty much unconsciousness.
When you die. When you go to sleep.
Oh, I'm sorry. We finally figured it out. There's this weird kind of unconscious state when you fall asleep. Here you go, world. We finally figured it out. No, when you die, we don't think that your soul goes up to heaven and you're conscious up there. We think that God maintains your soul or whatever part of yourself isn't your body in some state, but you aren't conscious of anything. And so we do believe in a resurrection of the dead, but we think that it's more or less going to happen everybody at once at the return of Jesus to the earth. And I was telling one of my friends at work about this, and he was like, isn't that what Jewish people believe? I was like, probably. We appropriated like the entire Jewish religion, and then added Jesus to it. So
and then cross some things off the list.
yeah, cross some things off, put some stuff. But I am, well, obviously, since that is pretty much what I expect to have happen, I feel like we benefited from that. But in some ways, until I started listening to other Christian podcasts, I didn't even know this was an issue. But one of the things I wrote down is that one of the benefits of growing up not believing that you go to heaven when you die is that you don't have this weird disconnect between you as a Christian and the rest of the world. Because I've heard that described from other Christians that can be like a side effect, that believing that this life is about not, I mean, we still prepare for the afterlife, but we aren't just trying to survive this terrible world so we can get to heaven. It keeps the focus on like obedience here and service to this world. And then the other thing that I like about it is that it doesn't put this weird positive spin on death. That it keeps death as like a negative thing. Yeah. We don't have to go to funeral. We go to funerals, and funerals for us are comforting because they say like, you know, the next thing this person knows, they're gonna be, you know, rising with a new body. But we don't have to hear stuff about how like it's really better that they died because now they're up in heaven with Jesus. They're happier that way. You guys would all actually be happier if you would just die too. Like,
yeah. And the other thing about that is that, like, instead of the world being destroyed, like, the world is going to be cleansed and redeemed. Like, there's no heaven that you go to, and that's where it is. You know, the whole New Jerusalem coming down, that's starting, you know, the emphasis on the fact that, oh, no, God is going to come to earth, and these two, heaven and earth, are going to be joined. Like, that's not a foreign concept, which apparently... Yeah, that is for some people. Which it does have
some like psychological like, it does cause some things. If that's the way you look at it, I guess I can see how that too. It makes you keep in your mind the fact that like this world is good. This world was a good creation.
Yeah. This place isn't a wash.
Yeah, this wasn't like some crappy mistake that someday is going to water it up and throw it in a trash can. Like. He's not like, oh, you know, like, oh, I hate that we have to live here. It's so horrible, and let's just screw it. Like, you still value it, and you still feel like he values it. The next one is Sabbath. We go to church on Saturday, not Sunday, very purposefully.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also...
It's the biggin.
It is the biggin. And so from sundown on Friday until sundown on Saturday, you don't do like customary work, which for us mostly means...
Or spend money.
Mostly means our job.
Yeah, your job.
Most of us...
Unless you have a job where you, like healthcare jobs or firefight. Yeah, that kind of, where it's somebody has to be doing it. Most people don't think there's anything wrong with still doing that if you have that kind of job. My favorite joke is that vampires and Sabbatarians always know when the sun goes down.
Oh man, especially in summer, because it gets rough on Saturdays.
This far north,
the sun doesn't go down till like 9 or after 9 at the latest.
Yeah. I think it's like 9.
Close to 9:30.
Yeah, it's close to 9:30 near the solstice.
And so the fact that we don't spend money and we don't go to work on Saturday, I feel like it's like anything else. If you grow up used to it, it doesn't even feel like a pain. It's like whenever I read about the sacrificial system, I'm like, oh man, this was like, it's so much to remember. But if you're around it from the time you're born, you probably don't have to actually like look it up. Like, what do I do now? So what I wrote down for the positives from it is that we grew up with a weekly reminder that our time and our livelihood belong to God. You don't have to just keep that concept in your head. Every week you're reminded, like, no, you're allowed to work and you're allowed to live because of God, so you owe him what he asks you for. And so the way we were taught is that he asks you for 1 day out of every 7, and you had best give it to him because you owe it to him.
And also that it was part of the way things were designed, so it's like best for you physically and psychologically if you have that this is like something built in from creation.
Yeah, like so I have it in here, but I I'm just kidding. No, I think the way that I was thinking about it is like you grow up like not only knowing that God understands we're lightweights, but that He actually planned for it. Yeah, it's not bad that you need a rest sometimes. Yeah. Like God mandated that you take it. Yeah,
and He did it first. So I mean, if God took a rest, then yeah.
And then the other thing that I like about it is that it makes it much harder for us to try to preach that going to church is about working for God. Like, the idea of church is, it stays something that you do because it refreshes you, something that you do so that you can get some support, and not necessarily like, you guys have to come here because we got some work to do for the gospel, and that's what we need to focus on. And, you know, like, it's built in that church is supposed to be restful. And that
at least the idea, whether it actually makes it.
Probably depends on the people in the church.
Yeah, it depends on the people in the church.
I don't really have anything to talk about for this one, but we are non-Trinitarian.
Officially non-Trinitarian. Some of us are a little Trinitarian. There's a sliding scale. Yeah.
There is a sliding scale, but not officially.
But not officially. Well, actually, officially, I think... I don't know if it's officially, but it's not officially, because in our magazine, which is the Bible Advocate, they're like, actually, Jesus is God now. But a lot of people still don't believe that, like, in the rank and file.
Yeah.
Like, I don't remember what are we even doing? We should have picked up one of those little doctrinal belief booklets.
I know, I'm mostly going well, I mean, what I just know from growing up. Yeah. But also, like, the only reason I knew we were non-Trinitarian is because when I was a senior at our church's high school, and we had to take doctrinal class. And I remember being like, oh, that's kind of...
I never took that.
Oh, you didn't have... It wasn't required as a senior? With Pastor Morrow?
No, there were too many seniors that year, so they had to do 2 of them, or something like that. Somehow I ended up doing, we did something different. We watched a lot of creation videos.
Well, I remember, I have no clue exactly what it said.
I fell asleep during a lot of creation videos.
I remember the part of it that I liked, actually, with that doctrine, is that they were like, yeah, we think, like, God and Jesus are, like, over here, and this is what we think of them. And then the Holy Spirit, like... We're not too sure, but it's a good thing. And I was like, oh, I can respect the fact that people were like, we don't really know what's going on.
People talk about the Holy Spirit a lot. It's not like it's not a thing, but people don't spend a whole lot of time worrying about exactly what the Holy Spirit is and whether or not the Holy Spirit's actually God or not. It's got its pros and cons.
I hope it's one of those things where I like talking about it, but to actually like worry about it.
Say that it's nailed down in this.
Or that it has to be nailed down. There's no point. You don't even know what you believe. Oh, I don't like stuff like that.
I can understand it kind of because, systematic theology and making machinery work and all that stuff.
I guess I'm just you don't necessarily theology. Yeah.
Well, you don't necessarily need systematic theology to live either,
No, you don't.
Not
Okay, the other, actually the last 2 are also big uns.
Yeah, these are... Is that why you brought your bag up?
Maybe, I know, and that's my birth control alarm.
We're okay with birth control at Church of God Seventh Day.
At least we're not officially against it. I don't think I've ever heard anybody talk against it.
No, I don't think so either.
Yeah.
Don't drink your juice.
Yeah. Clean and unclean meats and pagan holidays are also very important to a lot of people in Church of God Seventh Day. So, most of us, this is definitely kept pretty laxly, but most of us keep the dietary laws. I know I did burp.
Sorry. I needed to burp, and I was like, what do I do if I have to burp on the podcast?
We might even be able to edit it out later. I don't know.
I hope not.
Most of us keep the dietary laws from the Old Testament. It's in Leviticus and Deuteronomy. Exodus and Deuteronomy. I don't need to know. It's in 2 places. I already know them.
Leviticus and Deuteronomy.
Okay.
I'm pretty sure.
I thought it might be at the very end of Exodus, and then
maybe
2. I don't remember. So there's rules in it. It's only about meat, although some people think that you can't eat mushrooms because they don't bear their seeds within them because they don't have seeds. But anyway,
it's not like the whole Jewish kosher thing because that's big, huge deal. This is just like certain meat you don't
That's
eat.
why we call it clean and unclean and not kosher.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, with kosher, at least some people are kosher. You don't have any dairy with meat, and you don't cook them in the same pans.
Yeah.
But if it's a land animal, it has to have split hooves and chew the cud. If it's in the water, it has to have fins and scales. And the birds, there's just a list of birds that you can't eat, and you can eat everything that's not on the list. And it's mostly like birds of prey and like what do you call them?
It doesn't really come up too much because I think most birds that are typically eaten in America are clean anyway. Yeah. I can't think of one that isn't.
Yeah, geese, turkey, chickens, ducks.
Pigeon might not be.
Yeah, but not
I'm
that
not sure.
many people eat pigeon.
No, well, squab. They call it squab when they eat pigeon.
Yeah, but still not that many people eat squab. I don't know.
Oops, I'm kicking the table.
So it sounds really crazy, and I have had friends be like, I just don't think God, if there's a God, is concerned over what kind of meat
whether you eat pigs or not.
Yeah, I'm like,
pigs are the big one. We don't eat pigs.
I don't know if pigs are any bigger than shellfish. I think it just comes up more.
Yeah.
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 But the things that I like about it is that when you grow up in CoG7, you grow up with a very real, lifelong object lesson that there are some things in the world that you just don't put into yourself. Because, and when we teach it, we don't even just teach that, like, God just said it, so we do it. We do teach the idea that, like, God told them to do this so that there would be a symbol of their holiness and their separateness. And we do keep it because, well, I don't keep it because I think you have to. But most people in CoG7 keep it because they think God said you have to. But there's also just this object lesson that there are unholy, unclean things in the world, and if you're following God, you just don't put those things inside of yourself. That's what I like about it. And I also want to tell the story about my daughter when she was maybe 3, because I don't think Dixie was born yet. When Evie was about 3, one time she said that the Bible is a book about people and what they eat. I forgot about it. I thought it was the most CoG7 summary of the Bible I've ever heard in my life. Oh, man.
What they eat.
And it also gets you used to being obedient to what you think is right, even when it's inconvenient, and even when people think you're crazy, which I think is valuable.
Yeah. I'm actually working my way through an anthropology book called Purity and Danger, and part of it is an anthropological assessment of the reasons, how the categories in the Levitical clean and unclean laws work. Yeah, but it's irrelevant.
I was listening to a podcast where they were going over them too, and I'm trying to remember if they said anything interesting about why they... But actually what they were saying, I think what the one particular podcast I was listening to, I think what the guy was trying to say, his theory was that maybe these were animals that culturally, just in the area, were already kind of considered dirty. And so when God set up them, maybe it wasn't so much about, like, this is just logically what you shouldn't eat, so much as, like, you guys already consider these things dirty. I'm going to teach you a lesson by telling you don't eat things that you think are dirty. You know, make yourself separate, make yourself different by not eating these things. And other people will see that you think these things are dirty too. And pagan holidays, which is...
Most of them.
People don't really worry about Valentine's Day that much.
No, it's like an iffy one.
I think mostly people don't worry about that one so much because religion doesn't really get brought into it for us.
Yeah.
Like we see Halloween as with some very big religious overtones, not Christian, but some very big Christian or religious overtones, and then we don't do Christmas and we don't do Easter because of the pagan background.
Yeah. Stuff that came into practice.
Actually, another friend at work, because we're not that far past Easter right now, she told me, or I came into work the Monday after Easter, and she was like, do you do anything for Easter? I was like, no. And she was like, oh, I thought you did for some reason. She was like, my husband, he was like, hey, I've been researching, and I think Easter is pagan. And I was like, it can't be pagan. Alicia does it. I was like, no. I don't do it. Yeah.
I actually kind of think we should do something for the resurrection, though. I don't think we should call it after a pagan goddess. But but you look in the New Testament, and it started jumping out at me that, they talk about Jesus' death, but the big deal for them was the resurrection. And there's records that they actually celebrated the resurrection very early in church history.
I think maybe it's wearing off, but I think for a long time people have wanted to not do anything because they don't
because it was too much maybe not do something, but maybe just recognize it on the Sabbath the day before and just be like, hey guys, the resurrection isn't pagan, even if you think Easter is.
The positives, I wrote down that it teaches you to try to keep your understanding of God independent from whatever culture you might be born into. It emphasizes a responsibility to try to understand God as clearly as you can. And if you're brought up being taught this about God by your culture and not the Bible, it's you have a responsibility to find out if that's actually right or not, which I think is good. And then it's also another thing where you get used to being different because you go to school and
you don't do the party.
And you don't, even if you go
Christmas. I guess they don't really have Christmas parties anymore in public schools.
They have holiday parties. And I think Evie got to go to one of the parties and not the other, but still, around Halloween, even if you go to a little party at your school, people are like, "Did you get a lot of candy when you trick or treated?" I don't have happy holidays.
I don't have happy holidays.
You have happy holidays.
I've actually this is an example of what I'm being a bad kid in my mind, because there actually is a Roman festival celebrating some kind of political victory, some little revolution that got put down or something around July 4th. And so sometimes I'm a little bratty and I want to be like, Jefferson and the rest of them, they were really into neoclassical stuff. They might have declared this Independence Day because of a Roman pagan holiday. Maybe we shouldn't do this one either. But I'm bad. I'm bad when I have that thought.
Gabe tells me that I'm quite a brat every year around Lord's Supper, because our church does, communion or Eucharist or Lord's Supper.
That's the death, though.
We do it, the fact that we do it once a year, which is fine. I think it's totally fine. The Bible never says to do that.
Yeah, but I've never understood why we're
act like it does.
Very strongly. There are people that think that something is seriously wrong with you if you're taking communion more than once a year.
It's absolutely fine to only do it once a year. Absolutely fine. It's weird to act like the Bible says you can only do it once a year, because it never does. So
it suggests that they were doing it a lot, actually.
Yes, because he said, as often as you come together in your houses, I hear this is happening. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Makes it sound like they were doing it a lot whenever they were getting together. Yeah. But every year when CoG7ers that me and Gabe know start really trying to figure out when the true time of Passover should be, because apparently
that was one of the schisms, was that a group thought it should be on one day and the other group thought it should be on the next day.
Because even with in Judaism, they're not necessarily. This is what I hear from these people, is that depending on how you figure it, because their calendar wasn't like our calendar; it was based on moon phases and stuff.
Calendar.
Every year when they start freaking out about it, I always tell Gabe, I don't understand why they're freaking out. You can take communion whenever you want. You decide for yourself. And it's fine to decide for yourself, but you decide for yourself. So, why are we flipping out? But
the other thing that I didn't see on your list, and I think this is not something that I hear really talked about a whole ton. Mom used to talk about it, though, but I didn't remember hearing many other people talk about it, is that we are an open creed church, which means that if you are baptized, you can be a member. You don't have to really, the understanding is that if you believe something different than the official doctrines, you're not going to rock the boat about it. But, when I have a friend who, she became a member to work at the school, which is funny because I worked at the school and I've never been a member, an official member. But anyway, when she got membership for that, and she said that it was like, she basically just said, hey, I want to be a member. It's like, oh, okay, fill this out and I'll send it in. And then he was like, I guess I should ask and make sure you were baptized, but I baptized you, so I guess I don't need to ask that. So yeah, like pretty much anybody can be a member of Church of God Seventh-day. Although they, what do you call the body?
The conference?
Yeah, the conference. Did they do that thing where you had to sign the thing that says that you'll actually like come to church and occasionally
I didn't even hear about
tithe
that.
to us? Yeah, that was years ago, and people got real. This is where it's like you can't tell CoG7ers what you. A bunch of people got really upset. Basically, it was just signing a thing saying that you would act like you were a member of a church if you were a member of a church, and people got upset enough. I know at least one person who left the church over this. So it's like you're not gonna make CoG7ers do anything.
No. Oh, man.
They aren't even going to sign a thing saying that maybe they'll do something.
I am not a general conference member. I am only a member on paper of my congregation, and for now it can stay that way. And then this summer they'll decide maybe... I don't know if they're still deciding whether or not to put it to a vote, or if it's just going to go to a vote, whether they're going to require conference membership for local membership.
I didn't know that they were separate, but I've never felt a need for membership in either one because, this is my flippant reason, is because the only benefit I can see from actual membership is that then you lose your only excuse to not go to business meetings.
Yeah,
and I don't want to go to business meetings. I went to one and I concluded that there was no reason for me to be there. But if I was a member, I would feel guilty about not going.
Our church is so small, you have to go.
Yeah. We go to different congregations.
Yeah. But, I didn't mind being putting myself down on paper as a local member because I go there all the time. And the way we have it worded, it doesn't say that you have to actually believe all the teachings. It just says you have to support them. So
don't rock the boat.
Yeah, don't come here and disrupt.
Don't set up a Christmas tree.
Don't come here and disrupt our teaching. Like, we get to teach what we teach, and like, don't come in here and disrespect it. Like, you don't have to agree with that. But I don't really plan on ever being a general conference member, and it's not because I have any problem with the general conference. I'm just, if it's not true of me, why would I put it on paper in the one tiny little section of my life where I get to be an idealist? Why would I say I'm something I'm not?
Part of me kind of feels like saying yes to one church means saying no to all the rest of the body of Christ, and that feels weird to me. But I know most people don't feel that way, and I don't have a problem with church membership. For me, it feels like it would feel weird.
I probably wouldn't mind it so much if I didn't feel like membership means too much to so many people in CoG7.
Wait, say that again?
Like, being a member of CoG7, in my opinion, means too much to a lot of people in CoG7. I don't want to make it easy for them to assume I'm in that club.
Oh, okay.
Like,
that makes sense.
I go to CoG7 and I actually do believe or support what they teach. I support the ones I don't believe.
We should have made a chart with your name and my name and all the doctrines, and we could have X'd the ones that we actually adhere to.
But I don't, by default, respect the opinions or teachings any less of people who are from any other denomination. Like, I hear what they're saying, and then I either think what they're saying is good or what they're saying is bad.
Or it's good in this way and bad in this way.
Yeah, but I don't,
Yeah, you're not a hardliner.
No, I'm not. There are a bunch.
We're not good at towing party lines. Neither one of us is good at towing any party lines in anything ever. What was I going to say? Yeah, it's open creed to the point. I think this is a good illustration of how very open creed it was. Because I was listening to this sermon this guy was giving. It was supposed to be a lecture on Jonathan Edwards, but he was clearly a pastor because he was using the pastor voice, so it was really more of a sermon than it was a lecture. But he was talking about how there was this couple from a Presbyterian background. He was Reformed. That wanted to join his church, and they didn't agree with all the stuff like from their heart, but they were willing to just not rock the boat. They would submit themselves to these beliefs because they wanted to be a part of the church. He said, and I had to tell them that no, that if you don't believe from your heart, I'm sorry, but we can't let you have membership here. it had never occurred to me that was like a thing, because Church of God Seventh Day. And I was like, there's this SNL skit where they're playing a game show, and it's supposed to be in Eastern Europe where people are starving, and they're playing for goat. And the last question is she has to give the name of the disorder where people have food but they won't eat it. And she's like, they have food but they won't eat it. And I kind of had that moment sitting there watching this lecture. I was like, people want to join their church but they won't let them.
Yeah.
And it was so, and I was like, wow. I talked to my other friend. I was like, Rachel, I was listening to this thing. This guy, like, people wanted to join his church, and he wouldn't let them. And she was like, yeah, that's a thing in a lot of churches. And I was like, huh, never heard of that in my life.
Overall, though, my experience with CoG7, like, I'll complain about CoG7 because it's my family, and that's who you know enough about to complain about. Like, that's why that's why you make fun of your own family, because you don't know the stupid stuff that other people's families do, or you make fun of them. So I complain about CoG7, but overall, my experience has been super positive. There's a bird outside. There's a bird. Window.
We're starting this on the positive note. Get ready for next week, because I'm sure we'll complain plenty.
Oh, what's next week about?
I don't remember. Or the week after, depending on whether we do this weekly or bi-weekly.
I think next week was supposed to be asking whether or not Christians like to de-emphasize what Jesus taught.
Oh. Wait, no, I thought we were...
Or is the next one about what does it mean to pray on it?
I don't remember. Well, you have it in a book.
Mm-hmm.
So we can tell.
Yeah.
We kind of covered the experience of it as we went.
Yeah, I guess.
It's a really small church. Yeah. So you really know everybody. Even nationwide. Well. Nationwide, yeah.
Because the only high school that our denomination has is a boarding school in Michigan. So the people who come there come from all over the states. So you get to know them and their families. And then, I mean, a lot of us who are really involved have been to at least some of the general conferences that they have every other year. Mm-hmm. It
seems like Church of God Seventh Day people travel a lot, too. So you're always traveling somewhere, and as you go through, you stop at X church.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is it's a strength in that, like, you know, we had a kerfuffle, like, 15 years ago. There was a big deal. A pastor was doing stuff that was upsetting a lot of people, and there was a church split, and like you felt ripples of it across the country. And I think that's a good thing, that when part of the body is hurting, like you feel it all over. It's not just like, yeah, you know what's happening out there, those people are having a rough time.
It's probably not true, but I do always wonder if we freak out over church splits more than other denominations. Probably everybody freaks out over them, but I've always thought, well, not always. When I was little, I remember, like, when there would be, like, problems like that. When I was little, just from the atmosphere of all the adults, I'd be like, oh, man, something really bad.
Yeah, it was cataclysmic.
Happening. Well, then when I got older, I was like, if people don't agree and it's easier for them to do things separately, then that's not a problem.
I think it's largely because usually if a church is splitting, it's because somebody's ticked at somebody else and fighting over it.
Yeah, but I guess
the examples I can think of were all like that.
The one I can think of when I was little, when people left, people did have hurt feelings, but that's because they had hurt feelings over the doctrines that were. I mean, somebody was trying to turn the teaching away from doctrine and towards Jesus in a way that other people. I don't know if we're talking about the same one. I'm talking about stuff in Sacramento.
Oh, okay, yeah.
I wasn't a really little kid. Yeah. People did have very hurt feelings, at least in the circles of people, of grown-ups we heard talking. Mm-hmm. But it wasn't over, like, personal problems. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's true. Personal feelings on doctrinal issues. And when I got older and looked back at that, I was like, I don't think that's a bad reason to leave a church. And I think it was more. That's a good reason.
I think it was more the way it was done.
They felt like they were disrespectful in the way they tried to implement it, or that they were trying to take over. Because that is wrong. You shouldn't try to take over a church. If you don't agree, you should just start a new church.
Uh-huh. Yeah, no, that's...
Yeah, that to me is irresponsible. If you're in a church and you're like, I can't get behind what you're teaching, I think there's some real problems with it.
To this extent that I can't even go here anymore.
Go start a different church. There's nothing wrong with that. That's okay.
There is an amicable way to do this, surely. I mean, there used to be 2 congregations in Lodi, and I don't even know why there were 2. I think one was Meridian and one was Conference, and then they combined at a certain point.
Well, I remember Mom saying one time that there actually was, I think, a summer where they tried to recombine Meridian and, but they didn't have enough members show up for a vote.
Yeah.
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 Anyway.
Because you can't make Church of God people do anything. Not even show up to the meeting.
I hope this episode isn't too CoG7 for people who aren't.
Oh, it probably is. Wait, we could talk about something else real quick. That isn't CoG7.
That's my to-do list.
Oh, that's unhelpful.
we need to talk about
where are the notes?
Making collages.
Because you had a
and drilling screws into the
Where's
wall.
the book with the notes? Because you had a book with the notes.
It's downstairs. How long have we been talking?
I have no idea.
What
does your phone say?
What were some of the other topics? My phone says it is 7:22.
Oh, I need to go home.
Do you have to go home?
Yeah, I need to go home.
Okay, well, anyway. And then I would like to try to do it weekly.
Okay.
And this one might have been a little bit boring because it was all just about CoG7. So
yeah.
And sooner or later we want to have guests.
Yeah. It's important background information.
Yeah. So when we make jokes about clean and unclean.
Yeah.
Or Easters.
The only preparation I did for this was that I actually did listen to a lecture earlier today about Trinitarian heresies. Because
Which one?
Technically,
which one are we? I was gonna say, which one are we saying is a heresy?
Arianism, which has historically been what Church of God said, that Jesus is a created being. It's not co-eternal with God. Does not share that characteristic of God.
This is how unsystematic theology I am. My belief. My belief is founded on the belief that we don't understand the relationship between God, Jesus, and the Holy Spirit, and that is how it's going to stay, and that is okay. And that it is fine to talk about it and fine to try to figure it out, but you're getting weird when you start fighting with people over it because you don't know for sure. Because there are things that make it sound like they are all one person, and there are things that make it sound like they are not all one person. And we're all just reading it and trying to figure out which one we think is pushed more towards. Yeah.
And I think that is actually because a lot of people are like me.
Can I have that belief and have it be systematic?
I don't know. Probably.
Yeah, that's my system.
I don't know.
That's just the first.
You gotta get a systematic theology book and find out.
No, I'm not. I don't have time to finish books I want to read.
Yep. It's flexible.
Yeah. I don't know. Okay, well, I guess we should probably be done because Lark has to go home.
I have to go home to my child, my husband.
I'm going to have to watch this video and see if, I looked at you too much, or looked at the camera too much, or fidgeted.
I'm pretty sure I looked at you too much, or that corner. I keep looking at that corner.
I keep looking at the bird that's
look.
building a nest in my eaves trough. And we're going to have to see if it was too loud when I took drinks of juice. All kinds of stuff.
I kept clicking my pen.
I did just a little bit just now, but this one's hard to click, so you have to push down there. Okay, well, see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.